what I like best about the Terry and Jesse show is that it revives my hope in men to be godly men.
It's a really good show because it's relatable to family life, daily life. It's encouraging. It's like cheerleading also for Catholics. But number one, the reason I like it because you guys aren't afraid to speak the truth.
You are both the most compassionate hosts I've ever heard. And as a Jewish convert, I am a much better informed Catholic. Thank you, Terry and Jesse.
I just think it's the best thing that we have here in LA. It's awesome. I'm hooked.
This is the Terry and Jesse Show. TJ stands for Truth and Justice. Totally Jesus. This is High Energy Blue Collar Catholic Radio. Here are several things I'd like to talk about today. People around the world, they're feeling the Islamic threat. And what I mean by that, over in Spain, there's this demand by the Muslim community to use Catholic churches to pray. And so far, they are, Bishop Demetrio Fernandez of Córdoba, Spain, he's saying that there cannot be a joint use of a Catholic cathedral and Muslims for prayer. And so I want to just commend that bishop for just towing the line. I mean, I think that's, he doesn't want to fall into what we would call syncretism. So I want to give him props. There's also another good article here. A prominent ex-Muslim, very well known. He was asked if Islam is a religion of peace, and we're going to give you a response. Also, another article about genocide. 5 facts about genocide against Christians in the Middle East. This article demonstrates very clearly that we've reached that point right now. And a lot of the countries, especially the United States, we're sitting on our hands as they're wiping out our brothers over in the Middle East. There's also another good article. It's called Reaping the Whirlwind of Apostasy Laws. You know, we give Pakistan about $1 million a year. And Pakistan, it's one of those countries that has strict laws against any perceived language against Islam or Muhammad, and people are killed. You receive the death penalty for any perceived disrespect to Islam or Muhammad or the Quran in that culture. And yet we give this country $1 million a year, and they treat Christians in a very ruthless manner if they perceive a Christian guilty of blasphemy. And here's the last thing I'd like to throw out there, and then I'll turn it over to Terry. There's an article, it says, do Christians and Muslims worship the same God? There's a movement, and I want to hear what you have to say about this. There's a movement of Christians and Muslims where they believe that it could be harmonized, and they call this movement Chrislam, this harmonization between Christianity and Islam. What do you think about Chrislam? Do you think it can work? And here's another question I have based on the article. Do Christians and Muslims worship the same God? That's the question I want to ask you. Do Christians and Muslims worship the same God?
Also, I want to just let everybody know, yesterday's show, we got hundreds of phone calls wanting questions and answers and CDs on the Catholicism versus Calvary Chapel, where Tim Staples and Jesse Romero debated the Calvary Chapel folks, the ministers there. I apologize. We couldn't call everybody back. So if you still want those CDs, call us at 877-526-2151. Also, people were calling for the teen apologetics with Tim Staples. I had mentioned yesterday that apologetics in defense of the faith for young people, that if you missed the show, that basically young people, by the time they're 23, about 80% of those kids aren't practicing the Catholic faith. That's a problem, I think. I hope you agree with me. I would like to resolve that. And I think one of the big problems is we don't give our kids, they're not equipped to defend their faith. So I want to encourage you to call the 877-526-2151 number. Also, just a note, this morning when I got up at 5 in the morning, I went online and I saw the letter that the Holy Father put out, The Joy of Love. Basically, it's the document for the last 2 years that everybody's been talking about, the letter to the families. And nothing's changed doctrinally. What we're basically saying is what the Catholic Church has always taught when we have people who are either, like the Catechism talks about homosexuals, we have to give them respect, but we also have to share the gospel with them, whether they're divorced or remarried. That doesn't mean we don't love them. And so we have to have a pastoral approach to try and bring them back into the fold. Nothing's changed. I know there were a couple cardinals, I won't name names, but he wanted to see that the folks who were living in a second marriage could receive Holy Communion. If I was on the phone with him, I would say, you got your answer? No. You can't teach anything contrary to what Christ taught, even if you're a cardinal. Matter of fact, even if you're the Pope, you can't. I'm trying to be as simple as possible, but my point is, I'm reading the document, and it's beautiful. Anybody who has a family, there's a section in there, that's one little section for a dinner table about what is love, the nature of love. So I want to thank the Holy Father for just reaffirming what the Church teaches on the transmission of life and the transmission of the family, because as St. Pope John Paul II said, the way the family goes is the way the culture goes. If you'd like to join in on this conversation, I believe that the people who call in on the show make our show the best show. I really do. It's not us, it's you. If you have a question or comment on any topic that we are here today, call us at 888-526-215, and especially when we get into what a former Muslim has to say in regards to Islam, a peaceful religion. And I think his background says a lot more than what Jesse or myself can say. Call us at 888-526-2151.
His name is Nabil Qureshi. He's a well-known author, and he discussed his conversion from Islam to Christianity. And he says that his realization, he said that Islam really is violent at its core. Now, this is an ex-Muslim. His name is Nabil Qureshi. He just wrote a new book. He's the author of a new book called Answering Jihad. And he says Islam really is violent at its core. He's a recent convert to Christianity. He also said in an interview, he said, radicalization is on the increase around the world.
Now, why is that?
And he gives 3 reasons. I like in the article what he says about the 3 reasons why radicalization is on. He says because more people now are literate. More people are able now to read the Quran. Yep. He says since the 19th century, people have had more access to the Quran itself and to the Hadith. So Muslims can read the Quran for themselves. And so as people are reading the text and they're seeing for themselves what the Quran actually says. I mean, you can go online and you can read the life of Muhammad without having to travel to an Islamic library. And he says, as a result of people being able not to read the Quran and the Hadith, he says there's a Muslim reformation going on. And he says there's 3 roads that most Muslims take when they read the Quran and the Hadith. He said Muslims are faced with 3 options when you read the Quran and the Hadith, by the way, is the tradition of Muhammad that's also been written down, the Hadith. It would be kind of like sacred tradition. He says every Muslim comes through a 3-pronged fork in the road. You either become, number 1, apathetic and stop believing. In other words, when you read the Quran and Hadith, you say, wow, this is awful. So you become apathetic and stop believing. Or number 2, you become an apostate and leave the faith as he has. Or number 3, you become radicalized. So he says that's what's been happening in the last 100 years. Now that people can read the Quran and the Hadith, they come to a crossroads. They either A, become apathetic and they stop believing. They say, wow, this is awful. I can't believe this is what my religion teaches. I'm out of here. Or 2, they become an apostate and they leave their faith. And by the way, in Islam, they teach that if you leave the faith, you're subject to the death penalty if you get caught. Or number 3, they become radicalized. So he basically says, a lot of us, he says, have become radicalized as a result of taking road number 3.
I would also just agree with he's saying that most Muslims, and he says, are not violent. Obviously, if we had 1.3 billion Muslims violent, that would happen. But there's definitely a percentage. What percentage? I don't know. But if you have a question or a comment, maybe you've had experience with Islam yourself. I had a little bit myself, but call us at 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. Patricia in Arizona, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you.
I want to try to talk fast and stuff like that. But one thing, I'm totally confused about with the Muslims and the way sometimes I really love your show, but sometimes in the way that you're talking about Muslims, I think it's like in general. I'm from Colombia, and a lot of people say, okay, Colombian, guess what? Connect with drugs. I then find people in the streets, and before they even police. One day, one police was asking me, okay, what do you have? And stuff like that, just teasing, and even if he was a police, he was just looking for marijuana.
Wow.
So, so the thing is, it's a stereotype. I know a group of Muslims that I really, really love deeply, and they're really nice.
Good.
It's more, they once make a school, and I was afraid that my kids going to the school, the private school here in Arizona,
yes,
in Phoenix. They made it. I pray. I let my kids go there. Mostly the kids there were Muslims, but I was looking for the education, best education for my kids. Guess what? Everything comes really, 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 really nice. They were Muslims. They were Hindus. They were different types. And my kids and another kids, they were the only 4 that they were Christians. My kids, they were Catholic. They are Catholic. And they were praying. They have the fitr time, the Muslims pray 5 times per day.
Yes.
So they stop and they go into one classroom, and the Muslim kids, they were going and pray. My daughter, it was in the locker with her rosary, doing her rosary.
Wow.
They always respect that.
Yep. Patricia, I hear the music. I'm sorry. Your point is one size doesn't fit all. I got it, and I thank you for that. Folks, we're going to have to take a quick break. We got lots of people on the hold. Thank you, Patricia. May God richly bless you and keep up the good work. If you'd like to get those CDs, the giveaways, call 877-526-2151. If you want to join in on the conversation, call 888-526-2151. We'll be right back.
Terry and Jesse Show, your spiritual fitness trainers. TJ,
Amen.
Truth and Justice, Totally Jesus. Talking about this article, there's a prominent ex-Muslim who he was asked if Islam is a peaceful religion, and he gave his response. And we just had a caller talking about, just a peaceful environment out here somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona, in a Muslim school where there's Hindus and Christians and stuff, and as well, and everybody prays. That's good. I'm glad to see that. But the only thing that I would say is that the reason you find peace here in Phoenix, Arizona, and in other parts of the country is because we're under democracy. We're under the U.S. Constitution. But under Sharia law, it would be quite a different thing, because under Sharia law, there's no religious liberty. As a non-Muslim in a country under Sharia law, you would not be able to pray the rosary. You would not be able to read the Bible. You would not be able to pray Jewish prayers. And so there is no religious liberty in Islamic countries under Sharia law. But the reason the caller is able to see this, all the children praying individually to their own respective religion, is because we're under U.S. Constitution, under the U.S. democracy, which I'm glad to see that. And I hope we always stay a democracy. Remember, under Sharia law, there is no religious liberty. And in fact, as a Muslim in a Sharia law country, you're prohibited from renouncing your faith or converting to another religion. And if you convert to another religion, that's the death penalty. And the fact of the matter is, if you're a non-Muslim in a Sharia law country, you're not afforded religious liberty protections.
One more thing you forgot, Jesse, and I want to talk about with Sharia law for women. Women are like slaves with Sharia law, and I don't know too many women in our country who would accept that teaching in America. So I'm just trying to point out that this was not compatible, Sharia law, with democracy and with our culture. So thank you for your call. Before we go to Barry in Bakersfield, if you want to join in on the conversation, whether you agree or disagree, we're fine to chat with you. We would love to have dialogue. Call us at 888-526-2151. I just want to make a note. Tomorrow here at the Sacred Heart Chapel is our monthly meeting. We have Mass at 8:30. I'm going to give a couple talks on evangelization tomorrow. That's at the Sacred Heart Chapel in Covina. And don't forget the Jesse and Johnny Romero, the Apologetics Conference on the 14th of May. A lot of people signed up yesterday. There's still room, but I guarantee you're going to love it. It's a Defending the Faith Conference. Call us at 877-526-2151. I think it's $35 for the whole day, and I know you'll enjoy that conference. Mark it on your calendar, May 14th. Call 877-526-2151. Barry and Bakersfield, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can hear me okay and my connection's okay.
Hey, we hear you loud and clear, brother. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Great. I got to ask you guys about this because I've been thinking about this a while.
Sure.
Now, and I'm sure there are peaceful Muslims.
Of course.
The ones to get to, the way to get to them, I think, is like Geronimo. He kept the United States cavalry at bay, the Mexican army at bay.
Right.
They couldn't conquer him militarily. Basically, they starved him out, and he had a handful of people that stood against thousands.
That's right.
Okay. Boko Haram, ISIS, Taliban all raise money through things like poaching. They control the ivory market. They, of course, do a lot of drug dealing.
Sure.
They do trafficking for sex purposes, porn purposes. So let's take those resources away. Seal all that stuff off. In other words, no more sin. If you're watching porn, you're contributing to terrorists.
Yeah.
If you're doing drugs, whether it's Muslims, the Mexican cartel, Russia, whatever, you're contributing to terrorists.
Gotcha.
If you're in any of these things, indirectly, you're contributing to these people that are trying to bring down our Judeo-Christian Western ethics. And I say, cut all those resources off.
Got it.
Start with the person on the street. Start with the military. Start with law enforcement. Really crack down on all of it. I mean, that's what I think. What do you guys think?
Well, I think you made a great point. Stop the funding. They get a lot of oil money on the black market. That's one big revenue that ISIS is getting. And I would agree with you. ISIS is a cancer, and we need to go out at it and kill it. And because right now, ISIS is promoting itself around the world. It has people all over the world. And if we're not careful, we just keep thinking it's not a big deal. Like our president said months ago when he said, that's not even a big issue. They're nothing. And he had to eat those words. And I'm sorry, but Mr. President, one of the jobs you have is to protect us little citizens. And that's my take. Jess, your thought?
Yeah, this article that I'm looking at here, it says that in the United States, we give hundreds of $millions to countries, Islamic countries that are governed under Sharia law. Hundreds of $millions. And at the very least, what we should be doing is demanding that they give people religious liberty, that they stop executions of apostates and non-Muslims, that they stop the executions of homosexuals and adulterers. I mean, if we're giving hundreds of $millions in aid, in economic aid to Muslim countries, for example, Pakistan, we give Pakistan $1 billion a year in U.S. military assistance and other economic aid. And Pakistan, it's a horrendous country when it comes to violating religious liberty. In fact, Pakistan is one of those countries that has apostasy laws. So if you're perceived to say something against the Quran or Muhammad or the Hadith or Allah, even perceived, you're arrested and executed. What do you think?
Yeah, that's my thought, is cut off the resources. There is no way the United States government should be funding countries that do that. Kerry came out and said it's genocide. And again, all these illegal activities, some guy switches his computer on and watches porn, thinks he's not hurting anybody. To me, he is contributing to terrorists and those type of people. I mean, let's straighten up. Let's just stop the sin.
Barry, I want to thank you for your comments. Appreciate your call. Folks, if you'd like to join in on the conversation, whether you agree or disagree with what we're bringing up, we're happy to chat with you. Call us at 888-526-2151. As a matter of fact, I would like to know if you are a Muslim or maybe a convert from Islam. Give us your insights to that, because that's what we're taking it from a convert from Islam to Christianity, his take on it. Love to hear yours. Call us at 888-526-2151. If you want to get the free giveaways on Calvary Chapel, yesterday, I apologize for those who heard the show yesterday. Hundreds of people calling. We'd love to have you get that CD set, Catholicism Meets Calvary Chapel by Tim Staples and Jesse Romero, or the Tim Staples Teen Apologetics for your youngsters. Call us at 877-526-2151. Thomas in Azusa, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Hey, I just want to say you guys are absolutely right in saying it's only because our Constitution is enforced right now. We have freedom to practice our faith. The Muslims have shown in every country they take over that they suppress all of their faiths and everything is under Sharia law. They've done it time and time again. Americans, they just got to wake up. You know, Jesse just mentioned Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan was in the news a couple of days ago that the men of Pakistan, the Muslim men of Pakistan, they want to restore the law that allows them to kill their wives if they do anything that is anything
Yeah,
that's
they burn the meat last night. Kill them.
Yeah,
I got it.
They want to kill. They can't do that. You know. So there's a video on, and you guys are talking about just everything, like you were talking about a couple of days with all this entitlements and stuff. The same thing. There's a video on YouTube called "The Devil's Lullaby," and Manny, a buddy of mine, told me about that. And it talks about how the devil is lulling everybody to sleep with all this sex and everything and stuff. And he's coming in, and this Muslim extremist faith is one of the ways he's going to come in and infiltrate our country,
right?
And just bring it down. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks,
you guys
Thomas.
are right on track with that and everything.
Thanks,
all
Thomas.
Right?
One more thing I'm going to recommend on YouTube. Paul Harvey, the famous radio announcer, did "If I Were the Devil." And we've played it many times on our show. It's a wake-up call to America. And it was done in 1965, but it's still true today. Thomas, thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
Let me give a couple of bullets, see how you'd like to live under Sharia law. There's no religious liberty in a Sharia law country, and as a Muslim, you're prohibited from renouncing your faith or converting to another religion, or you get killed. Non-Muslims in a Sharia law country are inferior. They don't have the same protections as Muslims. Here's another bullet. If you go to court and don't look for a jury under Sharia law, the judge operates alone. Here's another bullet. A husband can physically strike a wife if she disrespects him. Here's another bullet. Sharia law. If you lose in court, the winner can take physical revenge on you, an eye for an eye. Here's another bullet. If you're convicted of stealing under Sharia law, your hand is amputated. Here's another bullet on Sharia law. If you're convicted of highway robbery, crucifixion or at least mutilation is the penalty. Here's another Sharia law bullet. Homosexuals, adulterers are sentenced to death, and unmarried fornicators earn a whipping. Wow, there'd be a lot of people being whipped in the U.S. if we had Sharia law. Here's another bullet. Women's clothing is strictly regulated. Jewelry and makeup is forbidden. Women can't even make noise with their shoes when they walk. Here's another bullet. If a woman works outside the home, she can sit beside the driver on the way to, or she can't sit beside the driver on the way to and from work. One more. Testimony by a woman is only given a fraction of the weight of testimony by a man. One last one. If you criticize Muhammad or the Quran under Sharia law, you must die. Apostates must die also. This is all under Sharia law.
And I'll make one other comment, Jesse, that's not politically correct. The reason people don't want to say what you just said is they're afraid of Islam. You see, that's bottom line. We have to confront it in a charitable way. You just did that. That's my take. Folks, I hear the music. We got to take a quick break. If you want to get the CD giveaways of the Calvary Chapel debate with Tim Staples and Jesse Romero, call us at 877-526-2151, or the Teen Apologetics with Tim Staples to help your youngster know his faith so he won't lose his faith. Call us at 877-526-2151. We'll be right back.
This is the TJ Show. Terry, Jesse, Truth and Justice, Totally Jesus. There are several things that we're talking about today. There's an article here. It talks about this convert from Islam to Christianity. And he talks about why he converted to Christianity. He basically said he started reading the Quran. And there were some things there that were unsettling. He said a lot of people now, as a result of people being literate and the fact that they can read the Quran now, he says there's basically three things are happening with Muslims now that people are more literate. When you read the Quran, number one, you either become apathetic and you stop believing. You start saying, wow, this is awful. I can't believe my religion teaches this. And you leave it. Or number two, you become an apostate and you leave the faith entirely. Or number three, you become radicalized. This gentleman, his name is Nabil Qureshi. He says he became radicalized for a while. And you know how he left Islam? And this is why it's so important. Terry and me are big into catechesis and apologetics and teaching the faith. Here's what he says. This is why this gentleman who embraced the violent strain of Islam, this is why he converted to Christianity. He said this. He says, I ended up meeting a Christian, a confident Christian. Notice that. He says he encountered a confident Christian.
High information.
Yeah. And then he says, we ended up having long conversations, and over the course of a few years, I began to see that the case for Islam was much worse off than I thought, whereas the evidence for Christianity was very strong, close quote. That when he says that, it reminds me of like Father Botros, for example. It reminds me of Brigitte Gabriel, the famous Lebanese Christian apologist. It reminds me of Robert Spencer, the Chaldean Catholic apologist. See, these are people that are willing to confront Islam in charity, but with truth. Amen. They don't water it down. And as a result of their teachings, they are getting tens of thousands of people. I know Father Botros is getting 6 million converts a year. I got an email a few weeks ago from a black Muslim that listens to the Terry and Jesse show from France. Okay? 24-year-old black Muslim in France listens to our show, and he said he went to the podcast and he listened to a lot of our shows on Islam. He goes, in a lot of the interviews that we've done on Islam, he converted to the Catholic faith as a result of listening to the Terry and Jesse show and going to our podcast, listening to our interviews with Brigitte Gabriel, Robert Spencer, Father Boutros, and just all the stories, all the shows that we've done on Islam. He started comparing everything we said, reading his Quran and reading the Bible, and this young 24-year-old black Muslim from France has converted to the Catholic faith. See, that's what we have to do. We have to speak the truth in charity, but we cannot back down.
Before we go to Gloria in California, don't hesitate to call us at 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151 with a question or comment about today's topic, or if you have a question on apologetics, we're here for you. Now, if you want to get the free CDs, Tim Staples and Jesse Romero's debate with Calvary Chapel, I think it's a wonderful way to get good information. Also, Tim Staples did the teen apologetics. We keep always telling, we need to know our faith. You need to love your faith. You need to live your faith. Tim did a fantastic job for teenagers to study their faith. Call us at 877-526-2151. Gloria in California, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Thank you. How are you guys doing
We're
today?
too blessed to be stressed, Gloria. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that when I was attending the university and we were attempting to do like a Chrislam where the Christians come together with Islam, the Islam students, we came into the notion that it was very difficult because the concept of God was not the same concept that we had. In other words, they wanted us to deny the Holy Trinity. That was the biggest
can't do that. Yep.
They said that Jesus was just another prophet, like just another man that did good things. Even though he was the only prophet in the Quran that did miracles, they still, to them, is just another man. Yet, to us, he died and rose, he died on the cross for us, and he rose again on the third day, and they just wanted us to deny the Holy Trinity. What was the bottom line? So there's no such thing as Chrislam. You cannot come together and unless you deny your faith, which would be the Holy Trinity.
Yes.
That was the bottom line, so we couldn't do it. That was the first thing. The second thing was, as we studied the Sharia law, we realized that those were laws that were implemented to control people, but not to allow the person to find their own way. So they built people from the outside in. And in other words, they basically create the environment of what you're allowed to do. And it's very difficult for people to find their way. And so there's just no point of coming together. It was impossible. But the biggest thing I think I want to leave everybody with is when you say something like, well, not all Muslims are the same. Well, the ones that are not standing up for the Christians that are being crucified, that tells you that they're still on the other side. They're okay with that. If a Muslim doesn't stand up for the Christian genocide right now, then they're okay with it. Because if there was genocide of Muslims here in the United States, Christians would have an uprising. We would not want that. Like, why would you kill someone because they don't believe like you?
Gloria,
so I just wanted to say that. So thank you for your...
Gloria, I love you. You know that, don't you? And I'll tell you why, because you speak so clear. You remind me of a woman I interviewed. Her name was Melissa, and she was a Hispanic Catholic who was going to marry a Muslim guy. For 5 years, she became a Muslim. And then she came back to her Catholic faith. And I'm just going to tell everybody right now, I know our phones will ring off the hook. If you want 2 copies of a Hispanic lady who became a Muslim and then came back to becoming a Catholic, her story's phenomenal. Call us at 877-526-2151. Jesse, Gloria's comment about Sharia law and about the Trinity and all that, give us a little summary about why purity of doctrine is so important, because when Muhammad was around, he got mixed up on his theology, did he not? He had a heresy that was going on, and he actually utilized that to start his religion. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, Muhammad, he was basically First of all, let me say, Gloria, you are one smart young lady.
I agree.
I'm just sitting back here, and I am very impressed to hear a young college student to speak so clearly like you did. I mean, generally, a lot of young Catholics that go to college, a lot of them lose their brain, lose their mind, and lose their common sense. But obviously, your parents did something right with you. You were just firing on all cylinders. And but the long and the short of it, the reason that Muhammad, the reason he misunderstood Christianity is because he was taught by a heretic. That's right. Muhammad was taught by a heretical priest called Banu Hayyar. He was a Nestorian priest. And this priest was the brother of his first wife. And basically the Nestorian heresy, they say that Jesus Christ, the human person, is joined to the divine person of God's Son. So the Nestorians say that this divides the nature of Christ, rendering him kind of schizophrenic. So basically, Nestorius had trouble with the idea that the divine and human natures were united in the one person of Christ. So in other words, Muhammad received instruction about a false Jesus, and so Muhammad and Muslims don't believe in the real Jesus. That's their first error. And their second error, Gloria, I hope you're out there teaching catechism or involved in youth ministry, because young people need to hear what you have to say. You're a very young woman, a very wise woman for your age.
Well said. Before, if you'd like to join in on the conversation, our toll-free number, 888-526-2151. I'm going to make you laugh, but I'm dead serious when I say this, folks. I'm sure glad that we're not broadcasting in Pakistan right now. Yeah, you got my message, because we have freedom here. You know where Jesse and Terry would be in Pakistan? We'd be hanging on a pole right now. If you don't agree, give me a call, 888-526-2151. You have any... Jesse, stop laughing. I'm serious. Folks, this is the Terry and Jesse Show. We just call it like it is because we just want the facts. The facts are, we want to reach out to Muslims. I want to give them Christ. That's what I want to do. I've seen how some of these priests have been adopted and have been taken away, and they're preaching the Christ and him crucified to Islam, and many of them are converted. I think of Father Zachariah Boutros. If you want a copy of his CD on how he evangelizes Muslims, because that's the whole point. We're not here to beat up on Muslims. We're here to give them Christ. Call us at 877-526-2151, and we'll be happy to give you a Father Zachariah CD, because he'll help you share the gospel with Islam. Jesse, before we take our next call, your turn. Go ahead.
There was a professor at Steubenville who really helped me understand the whole Muslim and Catholic view of God. See, we as Catholics, Christians in general, we believe we're made in the image and likeness of God. In Latin, we say we're made imago Dei, the image of God. Islam does not believe this doctrine. And doctrine shapes practice.
That's right.
Islam doesn't believe God has children. They believe God only has slaves. So the image of God, this is a fundamental idea of Catholic Western society. But Islam's view of God is that he does not vest us, or he does not impart his image into us. And so the catechism, it says that we worship the one true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But just like the caller said, how is this if we know that Islam rejects the divinity of Christ and they reject the Trinity outright? Well, here's the explanation. The explanation that squares with the catechism is that we worship, as Catholics and Muslims, we worship the same what? We don't worship the same who. Okay? This is philosophy here, okay? Mm-hmm. We worship the same what, we don't worship the same who. What do I mean by that? What is God? God's a divine supernatural being. So far, so good. Muslims and Catholics worship the same what? A divine supernatural being. Who is God? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We don't worship the same who. We worship the same what? God's a divine supernatural being. We don't worship the same who? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They have a deficient understanding of the interior life of God.
Well said, Jesse. Well said. We're going to take a quick break and take your next call. Don't hesitate to get those free CDs. Call us at 877-526-2151. All I ask is to help pay the shipping and the handling. We'll be right back with Mark from East LA.
The Terry and Jesse Show, TJ, Totally Jesus, Truth and Justice, Blue Collar Catholic Radio. We've got Mark calling from East Los Angeles. We're talking about this article, this Muslim who converted to Christianity, and he says that Islam is not a religion of peace. He gives a lot of arguments, and we just want to ask you, do you believe that, another article we have here, do Catholics and Muslims worship the same God, and is Islam a religion of peace? We want to hear what you have to say. Mark, go ahead, you're on.
Thank you, Terry and Jesse. Yeah, Jesse, you just answered my question before the break. My question was, my question is about the difficult passage in the Catechism, which says that Catholics and Muslims worship the same God. And, obviously from the last caller, if they're saying that, well, we're not even going to dialogue with you unless you deny the Trinity, well, obviously we're not worshiping the same God. But you just made the really good distinction, which I haven't heard anyone make, that although we worship the same what, we don't worship the same who.
Well
so thank you for making that clarification.
Yeah, Mark, I'll repeat it again in case some people didn't hear. Obviously, there's the section of the Catechism in 841. I'm going to explain it. It says the Church's relationship with Muslims. Here's what it says. The plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator in the first place, amongst whom are the Muslims. These profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us, they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. Notice what the Council Fathers did here. They were very careful not to use the word the same. They said, and together with us, they adore the one merciful God. They didn't write, they adore the same merciful God. Vatican II in the Catechism did not write that they adored the same merciful God. They didn't use that language. They wrote, they adore the one merciful God. In other words, they acknowledge that there's one God, the Father of the God and Father who, rose up Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the patriarchs. Now, the way we could understand the Catechism and reconcile it with a good philosophical understanding is what I just said right before the break. When we talk about God, you have to talk about what is God and who is God. Okay? We have to use rational thought here. What is God and who is God? Now, we believe that God is a supernatural. What is God? God is a supernatural being. Who is God? We believe that God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So when it comes to what is God, we worship the same what as Islam, a supernatural being. We don't worship the same who as Islam. Because as the Bible says in 1 John 2:23, it says, no one who denies the Son has the Father. Islam denies the Son, and Islam denies that Allah is even Father. And so we don't worship the same who, we worship the same what. And the simple observation is basically Muslims say that Jesus Christ was a mere prophet. They believe he's a created being and not God in the flesh. And Muslims also say that Muhammad came to complete all that Christ could not. And so for somebody to deny that Christ is God the Father's final revelation for the salvation of mankind, that would put us in different categories. I hope that helps, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Did that help?
Definitely.
Good.
Yes, it does. And I just wanted to, the last young lady who
Gloria.
was on the air who's in college.
Yeah, Gloria.
She had such a good mind. I would really encourage her to maybe take a look at one of the great Catholic colleges like Christendom College or Franciscan University of Steubenville, because that would really, I think she would fit in really well there and get a truly Catholic education.
I agree with you, Mark, and I'll add John Paul II the Great in San Diego. Keep it up the good work, Mark.
Amen.
Thanks, brother. God love you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, what Jesse just did, folks, I have not heard on radio. I have not heard at conferences. He learned that going to school at Steubenville. He just told me that. And I just want to mention, I just want to say, folks, you're listening to a guy who not only has an education in theology, he also has an education on the street. And I'm honored to be his partner here on the Immaculate Heart Radio. But I just want you to know that this guy is the real deal when it comes to explaining in street, not language. What I mean by simplicity, he just explained something that I've heard other people try to explain for hours. So I just want to say thanks, Jess, and I'm glad to be on your team. Also, Jesse, I want to bring up one more fact because it's Friday. We were just a couple months away from having the apologetics conference with your brother Johnny. And for those who don't know your brother Johnny, you've talked about him before as being a really high information Catholic. He teaches RCIA, probably one of the best RCIA teachers in the diocese. Can you tell our listeners, if they come to this conference, what they're going to get?
I'll tell you what they're going to get. My brother Johnny and myself, for about 10 years, we fought in kickboxing together. We trained together. We sparred together. We ran together. He was at one time, he was the super middleweight champion in California in middleweight kickboxing, and I was the middleweight champion. So we would go, we would go to events to fight, and he would fight either right after I would, or I would fight right before him because I was middleweight, he was super middleweight. We've trained together, and now Johnny and myself, we've hung up our gloves, but the fighter's still in us. Now what we do is we teach people in the Lord's Gym the Catholic faith apologetics. We call it what we do, Terry. Yeah. We tell people, we teach Catholics the art of intellectual street fighting, and it just comes from our background because Johnny and myself, we trained at a very elite kickboxing school back in the 80s and 90s. So we've taken all that fighter fire, and now we bring it into the arena of apologetics, and all we want to do is help people fall in love with Jesus, get to heaven, know their Catholic faith, be good soldiers of Christ, and speak the truth in charity.
And I'll tell you, Jesse, the number of young people who are leaving the church, I believe this will stop once they know their faith. And I'm just going to encourage all our listeners, if you have teenagers, young adults, sign them up for this conference because they're going to get blown away by the Catholic faith, because they are going to find out that we have answers to these objections that they're getting hit with at high school and college and at work. And you, as an adult, I'm going to ask you a question. How much additional formation are you taking? Like if you're a lawyer, or if you're whatever profession, there's always classes that you're taking. I'm going to encourage you to come to this conference by calling 877-526-2151 while there's still room at our chapel here in Covina. And the reason is, I want you to have ongoing formation for apologetics and defense of the faith so that you'll know your faith, you'll love your faith, and you'll live it. And I believe this is my take after almost 40 years of being in the workforce of evangelization. I have found that very few Catholics know their faith. And so I'm going to encourage you, Mom, Dad, get your kids, get your adult kids to come to this conference. It can change their life because now they're going to hear two men who are deeply in love with Jesus Christ. I'm going to be the moderator. I'm going to tell some good stories. You're going to have a day that can change their lives for the better and help them get to heaven. Call 877-526-2151. Join us.
There's three ways that we can turn this around. We can turn this Islamic onslaught, we can turn it around. Here's the first one. Number one, as a country, we got to quit giving money to Sharia law countries that fund terrorism and that deny religious liberty. We've got to quit giving them money, period. Okay? Amen. Follow the money. Number two, second thing we have to do. As a world community, we have to confront Islam and say, many of the things that you teach are unreasonable. Remember, Islam doesn't believe in reason. They believe in the Quran alone. And as a world community, Christians, Catholics, Protestants, Buddhists, Hindus, everybody, Jews, we have to say, you know what? This has to stop. You guys need a reformation. You have to embrace reason. It is unreasonable to kill homosexuals. It is unreasonable to kill adulteresses. It is unreasonable to kill apostates, people that leave. In other words, because Islam doesn't embrace reason, this is where their problems stem. As a world community, we have to say, you must embrace reason, or we're going to cut off all funding to you. You guys are going to be on your own. This has to stop. This denial of religious liberty has to stop. And the third thing that we have to do, here's a 3-part plan, okay? Obviously, we've got to be praying for their conversion and speaking the truth in love, but also liberals in this country, they, in a very real way, they foment, they help Islam. And what do I mean by that? There's a powerful book. It's called The Grand Jihad, How Islam and the Left Sabotage America. Andrew McCarthy was a federal prosecutor for many years, and in New York, he used to prosecute Muslim terrorists. He knows Muslim terrorists better than anybody's business. He's a practicing Catholic. He's a retired federal prosecutor. He basically says this, that our freedom is under assault right now because the liberals are trying to undermine the Constitution, and this is paving the way for radical Islam to destroy our way of life. And in this book, he basically says this. He says, the liberals and the jihadists, though they don't have much in common, what they do have in common is their hatred of Christianity and conservatism. So their attitude is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This book, The Grand Jihad, How Islam and the Left Are Sabotaging America. This is a federal prosecutor who's a practicing Catholic, by the way. He's saying that Islam has found an ideal partner in Barack Obama, whose Islamist sympathies run very deep.
If you'd like to get the Father Zachariah Boutros CD set, I'm going to offer it too. Call us at 877-526-2151. He's the best evangelist to Islam. He's converting 6 million Muslims a year to Christianity. I know of no other man or woman on the planet that's doing that. We're going to give away the CDs on the Calvary Chapel debate. We did that yesterday. Call us or go to our website, catholicrc.org, or call us at 877-526-2151. I'm going to recommend Bishop Sheen's The World's First Love, Chapter 4, and his response that Our Lady's going to help convert Islam. And I'll just leave you on this word of Fulton Sheen. Actually, it's my word for Fulton Sheen. Full Sheen ahead, folks. We'll see you again on Monday. God love you.